The city introduced itself by way of a damp stairwell and a key that stuck. My host had warned me. Old buildings in the old quarter hold grudges. The tiles on the landing were patterned to look like waves, as if the floor wanted to remind you what direction gravity truly favors. I jiggled the brass until the door gave up, stepped into a rental apartment that had learned to pretend it was a home, and let the night finish raining without me. I was there for a month to lead a workshop and finish something I had been pretending to write for a year. A play script, allegedly. The program paid for the flight and the keys and a stipend big enough to distract me from honesty. The apartment had a view of a courtyard with 3 orange trees and a neon sign from the bar in the corner that blinked Olas and then Elas and then nothing, as if language were too much trouble. I texted my wife. Me, landed. Apartment is charming. Lina. Charming how? Me. The refrigerator hums like it has an opinion. Lina. So like you. Send a photo. I did. White walls, blue couch, a poster of a French film that insisted it had won prizes. The kind of kitchen where everything is close enough to reach without moving your feet. Beyond the window, a line of laundry strung between floors like flags from a country that only admits the patient. Lina. It looks familiar. Everything looks familiar after midnight, I wrote, and didn't hit send. We had been married 9 years. 2 addresses, 1 car that needed an apology every time you turned the key, a drawer with the kinds of receipts that prove a life happened, even when it didn't look like much. Lately, we had invented a quiet, so convincing it felt like good manners. I waited to miss her out loud and practiced missing her in the kind of silence that gets mistaken for maturity. On the second night, the apartment introduced me to a regular visitor, the building's front door camera, which pinged my phone with a cheerful note each time the sensor caught a body. The message appeared under my host's name, Casa das Ondas, because I had lazily clicked the Use Previous Login link when my phone saw the Wi-Fi and decided to be helpful. Every third hour or so, the camera flagged someone carrying groceries or arguments through the archway. I told myself I'd turn it off. I didn't. The human appetite for other people's arrivals is its own airport. The city behaved like an older cousin, showing you how to hold a cigarette. Tram bells. A street singer with 1 decent note and a powerful memory for faces. A woman on the balcony across from mine who smoked and read the paper as if the act held the building up. I taught the workshop in a glass box that called itself a cultural center. The students, bright and unafraid, wrote better than I did and were gracious about it. On Friday, my host messaged to ask if everything worked. I said yes, except the kettle, which whistled like a nervous clerk. He sent a winking emoji and said he'd fix it on Monday. He signed off with, "Say hi to Lina for me." I started to type "she's back home" and stopped. Why would he think to say that? At 2 a.m, our apartment doorbell chimed in my pocket again, the front camera catching someone at the arch. I glanced without thinking, the way you do at a stove you already turned off. The image was grainy and green, and rain smeared it into a polite lie. But I recognized the coat. Black wool, high collar. The coat we bought last winter because Lina said it made her remember who she intended to be. The woman's profile was quick and shadowed. Her hand reached for the code, tapped it without checking, like a person who had practiced. The archlight picked out her cheekbone, and then the door opened and the image disappeared the way good intentions do when given a hallway. I told myself it was someone else. The code is common. The posture is a trick of the camera. I fed myself the kind of alibis you can eat without chewing. Then the phone buzzed again, and the app announced a saved clip and labeled it by default with the date. Except it wasn't the date. It was last month. The app was showing me older notifications because I discovered, when I tapped settings, I'd signed into a profile with stored history. A thumbnail listed a string of entries. The top one was stamped 27 days ago, 2113, and again 27 days ago, 2301, and then a series of 7 days ago, 08 or 32, 7 days ago, 1057. Lina had told me she'd been buried in a campaign that week. We had eaten late. She had fallen asleep sitting up with her laptop on her knees. We had not argued because that implies heat. We had diagrammed our schedules like people anxious to avoid traffic. The app offered a helpful button. Share clip. I didn't. The next morning, Lina texted before I could invent a normal. Lina, Did you sleep? Me, eventually. Lina. I had a dream about orange trees. Me. You hate oranges. Lina. I hate pith. It was a dream where someone knew how to peel it right. She had once said the only true luxury is not having to eat bitterness. Come visit, I wrote impulsively. It's cheap if you book tonight. The couch is arrogant, but we can make it share. She took 30 minutes to reply, an interval I counted with the patience of a child and the resentment of a lawyer. Lina. Can't this week. Next, maybe. That night, after class, after beer with the students who still believed deadlines were a form of justice, I softened 2 slices of bread into toast and let myself become exactly the kind of person who reads guest notebooks and rentals. It lay in a drawer with 3 spare light bulbs and a jar of tea whose label had the good manners to be blank. Inside, the notebook was a predictable anthology of travelers, honeymooners with forgiving stomachs, someone celebrating a divorce with adjectives, a couple from Cologne who appreciated the city's commitment to stairs. Halfway through, a comment in Lina's careful hand. The blue cup doesn't like hot water unless you apologize first. Last month. The page smelled faintly, ridiculously, of her hand cream. A citrus I had laughed at as expensive because I was still an idiot about the actual cost of things. The next day I asked the host if he could send someone for the kettle. He said he would come himself. He arrived holding 2 kinds of screwdrivers and the kind of cheer that survives centuries. He fixed the whistle in 5 minutes and then leaned on the counter, comfortable as family. You are a friend of Lina, he said. Not a question. Yes, I said, and my mouth tasted like a borrowed word. You've met? Of course, he said. Last month. Lovely eyes. I thought about denying it, about picking the hill called coincidence and dying there nobly. She didn't tell me she came, I said, and my voice came out like a new shoe. He shrugged, not unkindly. Sometimes we need a place where the room doesn't know our names. He patted the counter. She left a book. I placed it in the cupboard. I thought she would be back. After he left, I opened the cupboard and found a paperback with a broken spine poems by a woman who believed oceans are earned. Inside, a receipt from a cafe 2 streets over, paid in cash, 2 cortados and a slice of almond cake that had learned to be brave. The date matched the app. I walked to the cafe and ordered something I didn't want because it seemed rude to arrive hungry. The barista, a man with shoulders that had forgiven much, nodded at the book. You're the husband, he said, and immediately looked sorry he had said it. You know my wife, I said, and the sentence sounded like the kind of prayer that doesn't expect to work. He wiped the counter slowly, as if giving the truth a chance to arrive with dignity. She comes here sometimes, he said. A month ago, 2 days in a row. Then last week, with a man. What kind of man? I asked, hating my mouth. The kind who tips in round numbers, he said. Dark hair, not young exactly, but practiced. They spoke like people who have known each other a long time and wanted to pretend otherwise. He wears a ring in the shape of a small square on a chain. Adrian. The name arrived before I let it. He was a friend from the old days, the days when we built our calendar out of free concerts and weather. Adrian had moved to this city 3 years ago to teach architecture the way some people teach grief. He and Lina had kept in touch, she said, because he knew her before I did, and it's polite to remember who learned your first face. I didn't follow the habit men mistake for action. I didn't run to the square where he taught. I didn't check her messages or break anything. I walked to the river and watched a woman teach her dog how to be brave around swans. The dog took notes poorly but loved the idea. That night, Lina called. We hadn't in a week. The video flattened us into pixels willing to be forgiven. Show me the apartment again, she said. I'm trying to see the light at this hour. I turned the phone obediently. Here is the kitchen pretending to have a past. Here is the couch with ambitions. I walked to the window. Here is the courtyard. She leaned closer to the screen. And the bar on the corner, she said softly. I like the sign better when it only says LS. It feels honest. You've seen it, I said. Everyone has seen a bar sign, she said quick. Not that one, I said careful. She went quiet in the particular way people do when they have just asked their future to pause. I came for 2 days, she said finally. I didn't know how to tell you. There's a notebook, I said, because it seemed kind to blame paper. I came, she said. I needed a wall that wasn't ours. I needed an air that didn't know our names. I met Adrian for a coffee. We walked. It felt like remembering how to read when you've been faking it for months. And then, I asked. And then it was more, she said, and chose mercy. And then it was physical. I sat down, not because I was faint, but because the chair asked to be used. The neon outside announced Olus with such confidence, I almost admired it. It wasn't a plan, she said. We didn't intend to turn a corner and write a different map. But we did. I told myself it was about the city. I told myself it was about light. It wasn't. It was about not wanting to be the version of myself you had learned to inventory. I don't inventory you, I said reflexively. You count me, she said not unkindly. You make lists and I become an item on them. Call plumber, pick up bread, love Lina. I wanted to be the thing that interrupts your list, not the thing you check off. You could have told me on our couch, I said. I tried to tell you 100 times, she said. You nodded like a good man and offered solutions. This is not a problem that wants a solution, Daniel. It wants a sentence we didn't rehearse. What now? I asked. I'm flying out, she said. Tomorrow. I booked this morning. I'll be at your door at 6. We talk in a room where the walls are old enough to forgive us. After the call, the apartment kept its tone. The air conditioner made a whisper so official it might as well have been a judge. The door camera pinged twice. A neighbor with groceries, a delivery man with the kind of hurry that implies love somewhere else. I didn't sleep so much as switch off my nouns. Lina stood in my doorway at 6 as promised, hair pulled back, coat in her arms because the morning had decided to be gentle. She looked like someone who had worn a disaster lightly and now wanted to put it down without making a sound. Hi, she said. Hi, I said. We moved around each other in the rented kitchen like we were auditioning for a part someone else would play better. She took the blue cup and apologized to it, and the kettle did not whistle. We sat at the small table that had hosted other people's endings before ours and attempted ours with respect. I won't lie to you again, she said. I won't dress this up as a midlife exercise or call it a misunderstanding. I chose to touch the person I used to be by touching the person who remembers it. I didn't mean to hurt you. I did anyway. What does he want? I asked, surprising myself. He wants me to pick a city, she said. He wants me to pick him. He wants me to be brave on a schedule that flatters his courage. What do you want? I want not to be punished for how much I want, she said, and the voice she used was the one she only used with herself. I want to stop writing our marriage in pencil. I want to be chosen by you without being counted. And can you, I asked, choose me while choosing yourself? The honest answer took its time. I don't know, she said. I think the fact that I don't know is its own answer. We walked because rooms only let you be smart for so long, down to the river, up the steps to the lookout where couples take their photographs and pretend the background is consent. The city, in a mood to be kind, offered us a breeze that didn't treat our bodies like obstacles. On the way back through the courtyard, the barista stepped out to smoke and froze like a person who has found himself on a stage unexpectedly. He nodded at Lina, then at me, then at the oranges, as if seeking mediation. I told him you were lovely, he said to Lina. I told him I was complicated, she said. Adrian was waiting on the corner when we reached Olaslis, because life like cheap neon enjoys repeating itself until the scene learns. Lina, he said, and then, to me, Daniel. He had the same ring on the same small chain. He had the decency to look mortal. Don't make this a duel, Lina said, before either of us could choose a sword. This is not a balcony or a church. This is a street with more stories than we get to use. He smiled, and for a second I remembered why I used to like him. He smiled like the truth was a magic trick he admired without wanting to own. I'm not here to steal anyone, he said to me. I'm here because I was already here when you arrived. History doesn't equal entitlement, I said, and was proud of how quiet my voice was. It does not, he said, and took his hands out of his pockets to prove he wasn't carrying an argument. It provides context. Lina and I tried to be the careful kind of cruel. We failed. The city helped. The city is innocent, Lina said. We're guilty enough for everyone. A small circle of attention gathered. the way it does when three people politely break a life in public. The woman across the way with the newspaper watched over the edge like a jury. The orange trees listened. "What do you want, Adrian?" I asked. "A chance," he said, which is to say permission to ask her for one without pretending you don't exist. "You don't need my permission," I said, and the sentence injured me and then set the bone. "You need her decision." Lina touched my sleeve. "I will always love the life we made," she said, "and I am not in it the way I promised to be." "Then say it," I said, "because putting the period in place is sometimes mercy. Say the line." "I'm leaving," she said. I nodded because nodding is a skill we learn as boys and call it strength. "Do you need help with the suitcase?" I asked. She laughed and cried in one sound, my favorite of her sounds, infuriatingly. "Always," she said, "even when I'm leaving. Especially then." We packed her bag in the apartment that had done nothing to deserve this scene. She took the book of poems. She left the blue cup. In the doorway, she put her hand on my face with a tenderness that belonged in a better play. "Will you hate me?" she asked. "No," I said. "You're too much of me for that." "Will you forgive me?" she asked. "Eventually," I said. "And then again, when I'm older." She kissed my cheek like a mother who believes in her child anyway, and then she went down the tile stairs to a street ready to pretend it hadn't been watching. Adrian didn't look back as they turned the corner, which I respected more than I resented. The apartment and I stared at each other for an hour. The camera pinged twice and I silenced it. I walked to the bar and sat under the part of the sign that decided to spell LS and ordered something unambitious. The barista set down the glass and, after a minute of pretending he was polishing the counter for art's sake, said, "She left a scarf here last week. Blue." He slid it toward me in the way people slide a small animal that needs a better home. I took it because I am not made of principles. It smelled exactly like the promise she kept breaking. Citrus, clean sheets, effort. Back upstairs, I made a list because that's how I don't drown. Fixable. The door that sticks. The kettle. Telling the truth before it gets expensive. Making coffee for one without acting like it's a rehearsal for absence. The habit of turning love into a task. Not fixable. The month that already happened. The line she said, the version of me that prefers problems I can solve to feelings I can't. I stayed the month. The students finished their plays and some of them had the nerve to be good. The host brought me oranges from his sister's farm because he mistrusted the cities. The camera forgot my phone existed and I let it. On my last night, I left the apartment cleaner than it had arrived, except for the blue cup, which now accepted hot water without apology, as if time had done the small work people keep postponing. At the airport, I watched two people argue kindly about whether to take the early bus, and in their careful sentences, I recognized a dialect I used to speak. On the plane, I wrote the scene I had avoided my entire marriage. A man and a woman in a kitchen where nothing dramatic happens on the surface, while everything honest finally does. And outside the window, a city insisting on its neon. When the wheels touched down at home, my phone pinged once with a message from an unknown number. If you ever need a reference for the kettle. There was a photo attached. The blue cup, a tiny storm simmering in it, and the shadow of a hand not mine holding the handle with care. I deleted it. I didn't block the number. I walked out of the airport into a city that had been practicing all month how to live without my attention, and found that I could learn from it. Some endings are a window you close, and some are a door you lock, and some are a courtyard you keep on seeing when you shut your eyes. I don't know which this is yet. I know only that I can tell the difference between pith and fruit now without pretending the knife is the point. If I go back, it will be in another season, to a different apartment with a kettle that doesn't need coaxing and a bar sign that either spells itself or doesn't. I'll sit at the small table and make coffee for one and avoid inventing an audience. I'll send a photo of the room to no one and put my phone face down without punishing it for needing me. And outside, somewhere between Olas and Las, the city will keep blinking, reminding anyone who looks up that language, like love, is always a little incomplete when you get right down to it. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. It means a lot. New stories like this one are posted every single day, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one. And if this story touched you, please give it a like. It really helps more people find our content.